It's past the top of the hour. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Morning Cafe, hotter than your coffee, most definitely. I'm yours truly, Stanley Nyirinkita. Today being the 5th day of December 2024, it is World Soil Day. It is one of those days that we probably just think about them, but we don't really think about them and how important they are. Ladies and gentlemen, soil, the food that we have, 95% of this food comes from soil. So that goes to show how much important soil is. And for this conversation, we're going to be joined by Dr. Abed Kiria. He is a program officer and a soil scientist at the Alliance for Green Revolution in Africa, AGRA. Welcome to this set, sir.
Thank you.
Kindly tell us who you are briefly before we continue.
Yes, my name is Dr. Abed Kiria. I'm a soil scientist, system agronomist in sustainable and regenerative agriculture at AGRA. We promote soil health, and I'm going to be defining what soil health in a little while.
All right. The theme for this particular year, what do you make of it?
It's very important because as we get to understand our soils and as we get to understand about soil health, it's important to understand that when we're talking about a health soil, we are talking about a soil that has the right, the physical composition, the chemical, and the biological. So there are those different components of our soil health. And it's very important that we take care of our soils in a sustainable manner so that the food that we eat, we continue producing it sustainably to also evade food crisis.
All right. The theme for this year, ladies and gentlemen, is caring for soils, measure, monitor, and manage. So you can also tell us what you think, what should we do to promote soil health in our country. 2047 is our SMS number, 0793 267 279 is our WhatsApp number. We'd definitely love to hear what your feedback is. Dr. Let's take a science class right now. I know a number of us in our education system, particularly in the primary level, learned a thing or two about soil, the types of soil. So it wouldn't hurt to go back there for science class and just remind ourselves the type of soils that we have in the country and the history of the soil, the history of soil in the country.
Thank you so much. When we talk about the history of soils and the types, basically what is known from primary school, people talk about sand soil, loam soil, and clay soil. But as a soil scientist, the classification goes beyond that.
Okay.
We have, different classification methods of classifying soils. We have different definitions. Difficult ones, I don't want to go there because when I talk about, like for example, this is a ferrous soil, this is a alluvial soil, people will not understand. But then let's just maintain with sandy soil, loam soil, and clay soil for now.
Right.
Yeah.
When you look at the region, and particularly now, even when you say we maintain with that, in the whole country, the whole map of the country, where is these different types of soils, where are they located, and why is it important, even let's say for a farmer, to know this type of a soil is in this region, and this is why I need to know about it?
Yeah. No, thank you so much. I think that's a pertinent question. It's important to know the type of soil that you have as a farmer, and you can only do that through soil testing.
Okay.
And we have different labs in this country. We also have a lab at Kenya Agricultural Research and Livestock Organization, KALRO. We also have the crop nutrition labs and other labs that you can measure your soil to know the physical composition of the soil, to know about the chemical composition of the soil, to know about also the biological composition of the soil. And once then you know that, then that's like a diagnosis. Once you know, and you know the status of your soil, to know which nutrients are deficient in your soil, then you can devise the right treatment in terms of which nutrients should be added to that soil so that they can sustain plant growth.
Right.
So that's a very important point. for a farmer to know about measuring your soils, getting it diagnosed. And that's why we are saying measure, monitor. Then after measuring, if like, for example, today you get your soil tested, say by Calro or by CropNat, and then you are told your soils, the levels of your nitrogen, the levels of your phosphorus, the levels of your nitrogen, and also there's those are what we call the primary macronutrients, but also there are also what we call the micronutrients. So we may talk about, like for example, your calcium content is this, your magnesium content is this, and then other trace elements which are also very important, like for example, your copper, your zinc, your boron, and then the like. Then now you can prescribe. If you are told, like for example, your soil lacks boron, then you know I need to add, a fertilizer, a balanced fertilizer that has a boron, so that I may give the soil that particular nutrient. So it's very important. And then again, let me mention that in food systems, the reason why measuring our soils or testing our soils is also important is because from a nutrition, human nutrition point of view, we need elements like zinc in our bodies. We don't manufacture food for us. The plants, through photosynthesis, they manufacture food. So they need to be fed on soils that have that particular nutrient that we also need in our body. Like for example, you supply the soil with zinc. Then when the plants now feed on that soil, which is rich in zinc, it means the food that we're going to get from that plant will also be rich in zinc. And we need zinc for our bodies, for fertility issues, and so forth. So when we're talking about soil health, it's also very important to support human health as well.
You rightfully put it as the testing of it is very important. But Daktari, according to the Agriculture Soil Management Policy 2023 that was launched early this year, I believe around May there, it talks of the testing and it lists a number of challenges herein for the same. Number one, the poor burning practices, like burning of crop on the same, and also talk about the lack of the personnel that should be there in this particular testing facilities, the number of the testing facilities in the country as well. Speak on that as well, because you raise a very important point that it is very important for the farmer to go and test, but in the locality, they may not even get these testing facilities. So if you, for example, live in Mandera, you'll have to go for kilometers before you actually get that.
Sure, I agree. And what we're doing at AGRA, together with our partners, and I'd work with both, the private sector, the public sector. We work with both local and international NGOs in this space of promoting sustainable farming. And so what we do is partnership is very key, and especially where we are partnering with the private sector. We have farms that are actually doing soil testing using, the scanner, where you can very quickly get a clue of your soils. And then now, once you get a clue, you can, if you want what we call very accurate results, then you can translate that. And this is where you can now call, scientists at Calro. And these scientists are actually everywhere. The problem that we have with our farmers is lack of awareness. They're not aware of where to get these services. But I want to assure them that the information is readily available. The private sector, if you call them, they will be available. If you call even Calro, and even if you go to the Calro website, you can call them and you can be directed accordingly. CropNats, for example, the Owl Fund, we are partnering with them. You just call them and they will be on your farms. They will take the soil samples using a soil auger. They will go and test using wet chemistry. They will validate that with the soils of the dry chemistry, what we call the spectroscopy method. They use the scanner. And then we give the right prescription in terms of the nutrients, in terms of the fertilizers to use. And you heard me talk about good soil health consisting of both physical chemical and at the biological component. So that's why we're saying once your soil gets tested, the prescription that comes will actually be like a combination of inputs to correct that. We have, the physical properties of soil. Most of them will be corrected using organic inputs, like the farmyard manure, the green manure, compost manure, and the like.
So
but the chemical.
And in all these facilities, the testing standardization is the same?
They're more or less the same, because in science we use what we call protocols.
Okay.
So long as the person doing the work does it correct, then you will end up with the same result. The problem is if you mess up with the protocol and you don't follow the guidelines that are provided. But there are standard guidelines, like for example, if you are taking soil samples, how do you take representative soil samples from your farm? Yeah, so that's very key, because you need to ensure that your farm, I mean the soil samples that are taken for testing represents truly your farm. But if then someone just comes there and doesn't follow the protocols of soil sampling, it means then even what you are going to test is not a true representation of the soil that you are diagnosing. So it's very important to follow the protocols.
And that was and that was one of the challenges that was mentioned in that particular policy. I'd like us to talk about, because yes, you've told us, now it's very important to get the testing. I want us to talk about now the sustainable soil management practices that we as humans, we should really be doing out here. And now, according to the UN that it recommends, we could probably start with that with the help of the graphics. So it says, number 1, have minimum tillage. Number 2, crop rotation. Have organic matter addition. You had mentioned that early on, just a brief of it. Cover cropping. It also talks about improved soil health, also reduce erosion and pollution, as well as enhance water infiltration and storage. I'll kindly ask you to elaborate for us some of these practices that even the UN recommends in our farms and in the country.
Thank you so much. Yes, the UN recommends, and also AGRA recommends.
Yes.
Currently, AGRA is working with several partners. Just to mention a few, we are working with the Kenya Agricultural Livestock Research Organization. We are working with Farm Africa. We are working with the Cereal Growers Association. We are working with the National Potato Council of Kenya. We are working with the University of Eldoret. We are working with Inkatoni University. We are working with a number of organizations and institutions that promote sustainable farming interventions. And just as you have amply put it in your question, when we talk about minimum tillage, we are talking about tillage practices that do not disturb the soil too much. Because when you disturb the soil too much, like when we are using the conventional plow, then you are exposing the soil, the nutrients, you are exposing them to direct sunlight, and some of the nutrients like nitrogen will volatilize, will just be heat, and they will just evaporate, and then you lose that benefit. And then again, also we have some useful organisms like earthworms. We have also very important bacteria in the soil, like the Rhizobium bacteria. I want to tell you that Rhizobium bacteria is very useful in the soil because it converts elemental nitrogen in the air to nitrates that can be absorbed by plants.
Is it found in all types of soil or specific?
Yeah, it can be found in all types of soil, but sometimes because of poor soil management practices by farmers, in some soils they have died because they are living organisms. Like now, when you talk about burning, you cut your bushes, you burn them. When you burn, these are living organisms. They will surely die. And if they die, then it means you are depriving, you are killing, you are interfering with the ecosystem, balanced ecosystem of that soil. So even if you come and put your legumes there, we know definitely leguminous plants will fix that nitrogen from the soil and put it in, into nitrates that can be used by other plants through litter fall. But then they're not the ones who do that. It is the Rhizobium bacteria. So what happens is the Rhizobium bacteria forms a symbiotic relationship with that legume plant, so that now the bacteria enters the roots of the legumes. Then it is housed there, what we call the root nodules. It is housed there, then it now produces food. It absorbs nitrogen from the atmosphere, produces it into nitrates that can be absorbed by the plants. And then those nitrates are absorbed by the plants and then used for plant growth. And then the bacteria is also housed there, it gets shelter and so forth. So it's a symbiotic relationship. And so that's why when we talk about practices like crop rotation, we are talking about putting your legume, say, on one portion this season. Then we have your cereal on another portion. Then the next season, you rotate, so that where there was a cereal, you put a legume. Where there was a legume, you put a cereal.
Right.
So why do we do that? So that now this cereal, because cereals like maize, sorghum, finger millets do not have, they don't form that symbiotic relationship with Rhizobium bacteria.
Okay.
So they will not be able to fix nitrogen from the atmosphere.
Right.
So, but the legume will be able to do that. Then when it fixes the nitrogen, then the nitrates will be available now for the cereal to use. So that crop rotation is very important.
Okay.
So it's and it's a very cheap way of replenishing our soils,
Right.
because you just rotate like this, and the plant will be able to do that. We're also talking about using organic manure, because I talk about correcting, the physical structure,
Yeah.
the physical structure of the soil, the color, the texture, and the way that the soil is. Very important. When you put organic matter like farmyard manure, that manure also serves as a buffer for soil acidity. So we use that one also to neutralize soil acidity, which is also very useful and very important. So you can do also crop rotation. You can also do even intercropping, where you can have your cereal line followed by your legume line, cereal line, and so forth.
And Dr. So far what you're mentioning is the factors, now human factors really.
Yeah.
But then even in this list, according to the UN, it also talks about things like enhancing water infiltration and storage, as well as reduce erosion and pollution. Now some of this might just be natural calamities. Does that mean that we're going to be at the mercies of some of these natural calamities, like let's say floods, and there's nothing we can really do on that?
No, there's something that we can do. Like, for example, soil erosion. We can put on terraces.
Okay.
The contour terraces, and then they can be used to hold that rain water, so that it does not wash our soils to the water bodies, our lakes, our rivers, and the like. So farmers, and this is what we are doing when we say we are promoting sustainable farming at Agra with our partners.
Yeah.
So we are promoting, the use of terraces to control soil erosion. We also are promoting the use of mulching. And the advantage of mulching is, you avoid splash erosion, so that when the rain drops hit the soil, they're not hitting the soil directly. Because when they hit the soil direct like this, then it splashes, and some particles are being, washed away. But then if those drops fall on grass, so it will now enhance infiltration into the soil.
I remember that in science.
You remember that in science. That's very important.
Yeah.
And so the advantage of also adding, this mulch, the advantage of adding this organic input is you are also improving the bark density of the soil. When you improve the bark density of the soil, we are saying you are sort of like increasing the levels of macropores in the soil as opposed to micropores, because macro is big and the soil needs to have, those big pores so that the water can infiltrate. The advantage of the water infiltrating is the water is used to dissolve, the nutrients, because the nutrients are in solid forms. Then they need to be absorbed by the plant in a solution form. So water is very important. Like when you apply even fertilizers, you need water. Water needs to be available. Rainwater needs to be available. That soil moisture needs to be available, so that now once the fertilizers, because most of the fertilizers, apart from the foliar fertilizers, they're also in solid form, the NPKs and so forth. So they need to be dissolved using this rainwater, so that now the plant can absorb that solution. Then it takes into the system to do photosynthesis and also to support its metabolic mechanisms. So that's very important, okay. The way you manage the soils. And that's why we are saying our farmers needs to be made aware of some of the practices that they can do to harm the soil, on some of the practices that they can do to do good into the soil. You're mentioning fertilizers.
Well, this year we've been having cases of fake fertilizer. How does that affect the soil?
It's unfortunate that there were cases of fake fertilizers in the country. AGRA, of course, we are working with the Fertilizer Association of Kenya and also with the government of Kenya to ensure that at least the type of fertilizers that come into this country, or the type of fertilizers that are used by farmers in this country, are the right quality. And we're also promoting what you call the 4R nutrient stewardship, where we are talking about farmers using the right type of fertilizer, the right dosage, the right application method, and the right timing. So it's not just about the fertilizer we've given farmers fertilizer. It's also about the farmers being made aware of how to use that fertilizer and being told this fertilizer can be used for planting. It's a base of fertilizer, and the reason why it should be used for planting and not for top dressing. Then, for example, the farmers, if I tell them this is a CAN, and CAN or this is urea, it's used for top dressing, I should be able to tell the farmer why are we using it for top dressing and not for planting. Yeah, so there are those kind of differences there. And then again, when it comes to the dosage, it's not an issue of the fertilizer being available, but it's also making the farmers know the right dosage. It's like, for example, if I am sick, I need medicine. But if I overdose, then the medicine is going to do more harm in my body than the benefit, than the good that was intended. It's the same thing with fertilizers. And so we come into that space also to advise the farmers appropriately, so that we tell them it's not just taking the fertilizer and then applying too much. We talk about judicious use of fertilizers and using it in the right dosage. And we have methodologies we calculate, and that the right dosage depends on the diagnosis. Remember, we talked about testing. It's like when you go to hospital, the doctor will ask you, how old are you, or even for the children, because there is a particular prescription for children of a particular age and so forth. So all those components are very important.
And speak of age, there's something that the UN tells us, that it can take up to 1,000 years to produce just 2 to 3 centimeters of soil. I was reading that and I was amazed. You're a soil scientist.
Yes.
Help us understand, what does that mean? And even for the production of soil itself. Because, we just step on it, we don't really think about how soil is produced.
Yeah.
So yes, walk us through that.
That's true. So soil is, is produced through, the process of weathering of rocks. And we have different types of rocks that are weathered now to produce this soil. And that's why we also have different types of soils, depending on the parent material which this soil has been, weathered from. So we have like the sedimentary rocks, which once they are weathered, then they will give rise to the soils. Yeah, we have, like the basalt soil, the basalt rocks, from the volcano. Once they get weathered, then you get these volcanic soils and so forth. So depending on the parent material, then you get different types of soils. And then again, we are talking about the soil being formed from the weathering of rocks. It takes many years for the rocks to be weathered. And the weathering process are many. There are, there's some chemical reactions that take place, also physical, collision and so forth. So the soils that you see out here, They have really been formed through many years of weathering.
Doctor, we're in a technological world right now.
Yeah.
Things are changing. Is there now a shift just to reduce this number of, let's say, 1,000 years, and even to have a shorter time, talk about artificial type of soil? Are we in that era right now?
We are not in that era right now.
Okay.
And when we are talking about sustainable farming, we want to avoid that era.
Okay.
Because it can be damn expensive. It can be damn expensive
Okay.
to manufacture our soils using artificial methods. And that's why we are thanking God for the soils that He has given us. And that we are saying now, given that we have the soil with us here, we have to take care of it. Because if it is washed away through soil erosion, and then we are just left with rocks, it will take so many years for these rocks to be weathered again to give us a soil to support, to act as a substrate for plant growth. So it's very important that now we take care of the soils. We don't have now to think about manufacturing soils because the soils is already there. We only now need to think about taking good care of the soils. And that's why World Soil Day is very important, so that we can sensitize, farmers about taking care of the soils that we have, so that we don't get into a crisis where there is no soil or there is very bad soil that cannot sustain, plant growth.
Yes.
Then what will you do? We shall die because we depend on plants to live. Because plants are the ones which make food for human beings through the process of photosynthesis.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And actually, they say over 95% of our food comes from soil. Ladies and gentlemen, it is the 10th anniversary of World Soil Day happening today. How important soil is what we are discussing. We are taking a short break just to sip water. Even back at home, work a remote opportunity. Don't go too far. Our social media handles, about 2047 0793 267 279. Talk to us. How can we improve our soil health as a country? We'll be right back in a few.
Vile unavyojua watoto wengi sana hawana namna. Mimi ningependelea watoto wasome.
I'm here to stress on education. At the same time, let us actually do any kind of sport that we are doing. Sport speaks the best language to everybody.
Tunataka tutafute talents. Zile raw talents kutoka kule nyumbani mashinani mahali tuko leo.
Hizi mbio za Chepsaita, like all other sports, zinaleta watu pamoja.
We want to use this event to uplift the lives of the community.
Anafurahia hii mchezo sana. Hata sikaange naambianga watu tuende Chepsaita.
Wanafunzi wakimbie ili wakuze talanta ya mbio ama kuhimiza tena elimu.
This is the place to be. Hapa ndipo mahali wanastahili kuwa tarehe 7. Wale watoto walikimbia last year, wamekimbia mpaka wamefuka mipaka zetu za Kenya.
Hey there, friends. Welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break barriers. We dive deep into the stories of triumph.
Sometimes when parenting a child with the
Right, ladies and gentlemen, the 10th anniversary of World Soil Day is today, and even as we just continue, the UN tells us that, well, among others, over 95% of food comes from soil. Yes, the theme is caring for soils, measure, monitor, and manage. Just take a look at some of these numbers. It tells us that up to 58% more food could be produced through sustainable soil management. And Dr. help us understand what that even means, even as you also give us your final words on this. What should we be expecting today?
Yes, thank you so much. You know, by just taking technologies, we have innovations for improving the fertility of soil. You know, soil health, once it is improved, then it means the soil can sustain, you know, a higher plant population. It can also sustain higher crop yield. So that's what it means by us taking care of our soils. We can increase the crops that we get, the yield that we get from the soils. And we do this through a number of ways. Like, for example, you know, combination of organic inputs, you know, farmyard manure, compost manure, green manure. You integrate that with balanced multi-nutrient fertilizers. Fertilizers that have, you know, a wide range of nutrients. You know, they have the nitrogen, they have the phosphorus, they have the potassium, they have the boron, they have the zinc, they have the magnesium, and all these important nutrients that the soil needs to sustain a good crop growth and yield. So once we bring in, you know, that combination, then we're improving the fertility of the soil. And if we improve the fertility of the soil, then we are generally talking about a farm or even a landscape that can sustain higher yields of crops. And so that's why we are talking about that kind of increment. And today being, you know, the World Soils Day, we are creating awareness of why we need to take care of our soils. And I have given, you know, different perspectives. We need that because we depend on the soil, even for us, you know, to live. We are thinking about and we are talking about, you know, good health, even human health, and you can't have good, you know, human health if the soils that are, you know, sustaining and that are supporting the plants and the crops that give us the food, if they're not healthy. So that's very important. And I know today we have a number of soil scientists creating awareness, agronomists out there in this country and beyond, and the whole world also creating awareness so that our farmers, you know, can take care of the soil. So that stakeholders, both the private sector, the government as well, because we all need one another. And it's not, we don't have what we call a silver bullet that can serve as a panacea to all these problems. But we are talking about concerted efforts of stakeholders so that I contribute to this, you contribute to this, you contribute. Even the farmers are very important because if, like, for example, we give them this knowledge, they get the knowledge, and then they don't use, they don't adopt, then we are talking about fertility, we are talking about failure. So it's very important that also the farmers then accept and take up these initiatives so that as we support them with the knowledge, they're also supporting us with real work to produce the food, as we say here in towns and so forth. And I know there are different forums. Later, after like 2 hours, we shall also be speaking about the same issues in the Soil Science Society of East Africa. And the bottom line is you can't know what you are doing unless, first of all, you monitor, you measure, and that's the theme is very important.
Yes.
So you take care, and then you will also appreciate yourself if you are seeing a positive change to what the efforts you are putting. And that's why the theme of this day is very important to us. The work that we do at AGRA, very important with our partners. Okay. And I want to thank the government of Kenya for the support. We've worked together, for the last from 2006 actually. We have been working not only the government of Kenya, but also across 15 other countries. AGRA is in other 15 countries where we promote sustainable farming. We are promoting also other systems that then go into sustaining good crop yield. And we're talking about even the seed systems. Right. We're also talking about appropriate policies. We are talking about advocates for these policies so that the farmers can get aware of them. We are talking about inclusive markets. We are talking about inclusivity. We are talking about access to finance to get these inputs. And so these are very important to us at AGRA. And I want to thank also the county governments that we work with here in Kenya. Right. We work with over 10 counties. And thank you so much for the work that we are doing.
Most definitely. Thank you very much, Dr. Abed Kiwia. He's a program officer at AGRA, as well as soil scientist. I love the fact that you say we can't really care for the soils if we don't first of all measure, monitor and manage. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've taken notes. Well, it's a Junior Friday, and even as you gear up for the weekend, you definitely have to get into some full body workout and just prepare your body for the weekend. Coach Shedi is right up next for TV47 Fitness, right here on Morning Cafe. I'm yours truly, Stanley Nyerinkita, on behalf of Shiksha Arora and George Maringa. Have yourself a wonderful day. Over to Matters Gym.